What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Mike Robinson. It's a special episode of Let's Take a Walk, the Saturday edition of Let's Take a Walk. Um, I hope everybody had an awesome week. I had an awesome week, and as usual, it just kind of flew by, but here we are, safe, unharmed, all good. So, as usual, we have an awesome guest on Let's Take a Walk today. We have Miss Shukita Massey. She is an author, a new author, an attorney, and an entrepreneur, a business owner. You name it, she does it. And so we're gonna sit down with her real quick, and well, not real quick. We're gonna sit down with her and just kind of talk to her about just the who's, how's, and whys of what she does. Um, for those of you who may not be familiar with Miss Shakita's movement, I'm going to give her an opportunity to just kind of reintroduce herself and give a little background on everything that she has going on.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for this opportunity. Hello to everyone out there who is listening and tuning in. It is such an honor to be before you and such a privilege. And, I do not take this lightly to be able to share with you some of the things I have going on. But just to give you a little bit about myself, as Mike stated, I'm Shukita, born and raised in the Hampton Roads area, specifically Newport News, and went to local high school, went off to college, went to William and Mary Law School, and I am a practicing attorney. I practice with the Hampton Commonwealth's Attorney Office, and I've been doing that for pretty much almost 11 years now, and I really love it and have a passion for what I do, specifically for, impacting the criminal justice system, seeing lives change, being able to help people on both sides when they're faced with difficult issues. And so that is my, my job, my 9 to 5, or, however you want to put it. Of course, I have a family. I'm married to the wonderful Mr. Massey, Melvin Massey, and we have 3 wonderful sons. But what I really want to share with you, and what we'll delve into a little bit tonight, is some new projects that I have working on, specifically a new children's book that I have authored that's been a long time dream of mine. So I'm happy to be able to share about that tonight. Oh, you're on mic. Yeah. Hello.
Wow. Sorry about that. I'm back.
Okay.
First of all, I wanna thank you for coming on the show. I know you have plenty of things that you could be doing, but you saw fit to be on the show, so we really appreciate you being on. Um, let's jump right in. Okay.
Yeah,
So Shakita Massey.
Oh Lord, I feel like I'm about to get interrogated.
Nah, dude, once we get started, you're gonna forget that you're gonna forget what you're doing.
Okay.
So let's talk about Shakita Massey, the author. What's that all about? How did you what brought you to that point? Was that something that you always wanted to do, or was this something that came about recently? What's the deal with that? What's the story?
Yeah, it has definitely been a working process. It has not been something that came about recently. Just to go back, just even as a little girl, I've always loved to write. I've always had just an interest in writing, and that has basically followed me through adulthood. When I was little, I would write poems and stories and different things like that. And as I grew older, that kind of transitioned into me just like journaling a lot, and writing my thoughts down on paper. But I would say maybe about 5 years ago is when I really, had the desire to become an author, and specifically a children's author. And that came about because my mom, you know how your mom shares stories, sometimes when you were little, and she'll say, you used to do this and you would say this. And then it just kind of sparked the idea of, I want to write a book that kind of chronicles the life of a young, girl. Like you have a daughter, you have children anyway, and I have sons, and, you see them trying to balance, things that they come across in life. And so I wanted to write a book, or got the idea to write a book that would be centered around this character that goes through different things and learns different lessons in life. So that's how that all came about.
Wow, that's awesome. Did you have a point of reference once you started, or were you just like did you just start writing? You know what I mean? Like, because that seems like, especially for a person who doesn't really have the experience and has never done it before, it's hard to know where to start. So where did you start? How did you?
I started with just what I wanted to see. And at the time, about 5 years ago, I didn't see a lot of children's books that were centered around a character that looked like me when I was growing up, or made look like, some of my younger relatives. And so that's where I started with. And then I, just really asked God, like, what do I really want the lesson in this story to be? And what do I want it to be about? And that's kind of how I built upon it. I didn't have, an idea of characters or any, that all came, over time as I would continue to write. But I would just write a story here, stop, write a story there. So it's really been, like I said, a work in progress. It's not something that just came all at one time.
I cannot. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I cannot hear you.
Oh, wow. Let me see. I'm not on mute.
Okay, there you go. I can hear you now.
You can hear me now? Did you hear it? Okay.
I don't know. They're really trying to challenge me today. But anyway.
Sure, I'm here with you. It's all good.
So you were saying that you didn't see too many characters that looked like you.
Right.
Why is that important? Why was that important?
For me, representation matters. Especially again, just being a minority in life, in my field, and in different areas. And so representation mattered to me. And it's not always about that, but for me, I know when I grew up, I didn't necessarily see, the representation that we are fortunate enough to see now. There are a lot more representation in terms of diversity and characters when you're talking about children's books and different things of that nature. I didn't see that a lot when I was growing up. And so that was something that I really desired for my book, to be able to really produce a character that looked like, a little girl that may have the odds against her.
So what are your hopes when I read this book? What do you want me to take from it? Like, what can I learn about you from reading the book?
Yeah. Well, just to give you a little bit of a backdrop about what the book is, it actually ended up, my initial, I guess, vision for it was just a story, obviously. And then it turned into me having multiple stories. So it's actually 4 stories in one book. And the premise behind each story is that at the end of each story, the reader will take away a lesson, whether it's about honesty, whether it's about friendship, whether it's about being grateful. And there's questions at the end of each story, like reflection questions, so that the reader can actually ponder to him or herself, and what should I be learning from Parker's experience? And so my goal would be for the reader to walk away just learning something about maybe self-confidence, about feeling empowered, about, how to treat other people with respect, how to be honest, just your normal, basic moral foundations. And so that's my primary goal.
Are you a reader?
I am. Let me put it this way. I was a reader when I was younger. I would go to the library and check out 10 books. Now, as I grew older, obviously, and reading became more of a chore for me because of academics and all of that nature, I kind of got away from it. But I have, over recent years, regained that desire to read for pleasure. I think by producing this book, it kind of rejuvenated me in that regard. But I don't consider myself to be one of those readers who, read every day for pleasure. I have to read, obviously, for my job, but as far as pleasure is concerned, not an everyday type thing.
Wow. So how has the process has the process let me ask this right. Okay. So when I've had other guests on, right? And particularly I ask this to like music artists, right? So like when we do things that we've never done before, or maybe we have a talent for doing it, but we haven't really went into it 100, a full 100%. And then when we do, we realize there are aspects within the process that we weren't aware of that we start to enjoy.
Right.
So like in this whole process, right? Was there something that you found out about yourself that you didn't know prior to going into it? Did you realize that there was a certain part of the process that you actually like aside from the actual writing part?
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to the question that you asked me before about the reading. I found myself just gravitating towards children's books, and I guess it was a part of my research too, but I would sit and read a children's book or a children's novel, just to get ideas or spark different things in my head. And through this process, obviously it hasn't been an easy process. So obviously I've learned that I do have the ability to follow through with things, because I would think that this would be one of the major goals that I, have kept tabling, and I've finally seen it through. And so for me, I'm very proud that I've actually, stuck to something and been able to say that I followed through with it. But yeah, I would just say that, it's really taught me that, you can always be young at heart. Just because you're, 40 years old, however old you are, doesn't mean you have to read, a book with 1,000 pages. And so I just gained an interest in, reading, books that were catered towards younger audiences. And I love it.
That's awesome. So do you think just overall, just from you doing your research and you're running around, do you feel like there's enough um, emphasis, particularly with in the genre of writing that you're in? Do you feel like there's enough um, effort being made to draw youth to reading? Do you think that there's enough resource out there? Do you think that we do a good enough job trying to get kids to read or putting it in front of them to read?
Right. No, it's just a different generation and a different day and age. And, kids now, they, obviously they have the technology, they have the social media. And so even if you do have a kid that likes to read, sometimes, they're gravitating more towards an ebook than an actual physical hard book. And it's just a different day and age. I do wish that, there was more of a, I guess, campaign to really draw kids back to reading and less away from maybe your electronics or different things of that nature. And that I haven't really seen on a large scale. I mean, obviously, schools, they emphasize or they may encourage people to read, their students to read, but I'm talking about a campaign that actually encourages children to read, to make it cool for them to read, to broaden their, horizon, to spark their imagination. That I have not seen. And maybe it can start with me. Maybe that's something that I can think about, but I just haven't seen that.
Yeah. I think that we have gone away from, I think that social media to a certain extent has made us, I don't want to use the word lazy, but it has, it, I guess for lack of better words, lazy. Social media has made it less important to go out on the, like for instance, again, I'll use the music analogy. Like back in the day when somebody was putting out a new album, you would see them all over TV. You would see them out on the road. You would see them doing meet and greets, all shaking the hands and shaking hands and kissing babies and this type of thing too. And with with books, with authors too. You know what I'm saying? They would go to, you would see them at Barnes and Nobles and these different places. But with social media, it kind of takes that out of your hand. Well, it makes you feel like you don't have to do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I definitely agree.
But just in the vein of what we were just talking about, being able to just give that physical contact for people to actually see who you are and what you're about.
Right.
Do you, as of yet, do you have anything in place where you can actually reach out to the people? Like, do you have a book tour or anything lined up?
Yeah, we're working on it. I actually have, I do have copies of my book in a rough draft form right now that I'm going to show. But yes, that's definitely something that I'm going to be working with my book team on, to actually get out there and, obviously with the pandemic going on, things shifted. But things are opening back up, and I feel like it's perfect timing. One of my desires is to, be able to maybe go to the schools and read to the children. So I definitely want to do that. I would definitely love to do like a signing somewhere. So yes, those are definitely things that I look forward to doing in the future once the book is released. So.
Now, we've never even asked, what's the name of the book?
Yeah, so I have an actual picture. The name of the book is O. Parker. This is the book here. This is a hard copy, and this is a paperback copy.
Wow.
And, okay. So the name of the book is O. Parker, and the name Parker is pretty much in homage to my mother. That's her maiden name. And I thought it would just be cool to have, a girl named Parker. And so the reason why it's named O. Parker is because in the book, you'll see every time that Parker learns a lesson, or every time her mom or whatever character is explaining something to her, they're like, "Oh, Parker," like, Parker, come on. So that's the reason why the title is called O. Parker. But yeah, so it's definitely available. Well, I should say it's not available. It will be available very, very soon. There are like minor touches that need to still be made. So I'm holding the rough copies, but it will be available on Amazon, ebook, Kindle, all of those things. And my goal is to have it, brick and mortar stores as well. Hopefully maybe Barnes and Noble, Walmart, things of that nature. So, but that is it. O. Parker, this is the character right here.
Do you plan on making this a series, or is this a one-shot deal?
That's a good question. Like I told you, my initial thought process was just one story, and then it kind of turned into 4 stories. So I don't know if I would do another, like maybe 4 stories on this character, but I definitely see myself developing multiple characters and having multiple books based off of, a specific character. So yeah, I can definitely see myself maybe doing series that coincide with one another, but maybe just with different characters.
What role does your family play in this whole
In all of it?
process?
Oh my goodness. Well, obviously, my husband, he's been very supportive, and he's like, he from day one when I told him I wanted to write it, he's one of, how my husband is. He's one of those people where it's like, what's stopping you? Like,
Right.
get it done. He has that type of mindset. But I have this going on, that going on. And so it's just taken me a while. But every time that, I've told him what I wanted to do, he's been very supportive. And of course, my children, what's the interesting thing about this process that I love is really sparked in my son Jeremiah the desire to write. And he expressed to me that he wants to be an author when he grows up. And so
Wow.
that's been very rewarding to hear him say that. And he'll just sit and he'll write. And he'll create little books out of computer paper, and they be all over the house. And so I'd be like, Jeremiah, what is all this? And he'd be like, that's my book. Don't throw it away, blah, blah, blah. So it's really like, he just thinks it's cool that he's like, Mom, how did you do this? And he's very inquisitive just about the entire process. And so I want him to know that you don't have to wait until you're my age. You can do it now as a kid. There are children who are authors. And so he just thinks it's the coolest thing.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I feel the same way. Like I read well, it wasn't recently. It's been a couple of years now, but there was a young girl. She made lemonade, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she ended up getting a contract with Whole Foods for like I think it was like 10 or 11 million dollars or something like that. So like you said, you can listen.
Yes.
Do it when you hear it, lay it out if you can see it, you can do it no matter how old or young you are.
Exactly.
Or as Prophet Vicky would say, or no matter how wise you are.
Wise, exactly. Yes. Exactly. Yes.
So at this point right now, is there a team of people, or are you just kind of like doing everything? Because I was checking out the book. Can you put the book up again?
Yeah, this is the book.
I was particularly impressed with the cover and who did the drawing and the graphics for that.
Right. So the illustrations were created. Actually, I just went online, and I don't know if you're familiar with the website, and I'm not sure if I'm saying it correctly. Fiverr, or is it Fever? It's Fiverr, I believe. This was early on in my process. I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I just want to start feeling like I'm doing something. So I went online, and they have different people that put their services out there for you to purchase. And I came across an illustrator, never met her a day in my life. And I told her I'm making this book, and gave her some of my ideas, and she kind of brought them to life. And so that was, as far as the illustrations, that's how I did the illustrations. But the team that I've been working with, as far as publishing and different things, self-published, but the team that's been helping me just through learning the process is BB Consulting. And it's the owner, she's co-owner, Terry Branch. She's an author, and she's wrote many, many, many books. And her team has been very instrumental in just helping me to learn this entire process. They walked me through everything. And so basically what they did is they took the illustrations, they took my stories, and they, pretty much uploaded it to this platform, and their team put all the graphics together as far as the background colors and all of that. And so they basically just took what I had and made it into the book, literally. And so that's how I did it.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
These things can seem like, when you're doing things like this, they can seem so overwhelming and so far away. But when you have, I think that it's important that, like, especially for this platform, to have people on like you that are accessible. Because like I could look at a Stephen King or somebody like that
Yeah.
and see what they're doing and really be discouraged because whatever. But when I can see somebody that I
Mm-hmm.
can reach out and touch, I can talk to, it really makes it more tangible
Yes.
to be able to do. And so what you're doing, I hope that you realize how important what you're doing is based off of more so for who you are,
Mm-hmm.
more so than what you're doing, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yes, definitely. I appreciate that. And I echo that because I felt that exact same way when this process started. And that may have been maybe why it started off so slowly for me because I just felt like I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anyone who's doing this. You
Mhm.
know, where do I start? And then I started to, and maybe I would say it was God connected me to people that were doing these things that, allowed me to see this is very possible. I can do this. And they just became a resource. And so it really taught me one, that you have to start opening your mouth. You have to start
Right.
putting yourself out there because if people don't know what you're working on, people don't know what your desires are, then they're not going to be able to help you. And so it forced me to actually, when I was talking about Terry and her team, it forced me to actually say, Miss Terry, I'm writing a book. Can you help me? And she was like, sure, this is what we do. And if I would have never asked her, I'd probably still be trying to figure out what to do. And so I just encourage anyone who is working on something that, like you said, they seem, overwhelmed by the task to start putting yourself out there and see who is, there's really nothing new under the sun. So start putting yourself out there and seeing who is available to assist you. And, the rest will be history. So,
Okay, now we talked about the fact that when you were doing as you were doing the process, you found yourself reading more, right?
mm-hmm.
Let's talk about personality, okay? And what I mean by that is like, in this process, have you realized things about yourself personality wise that you didn't notice before, or rather were there things that you feel like you're weak in? Like some
Yeah.
people, like you were saying, they're not talkers,
Mm-hmm.
but because of what they're doing, they're forced
Yes.
to talk. You know what I'm saying? Some people, just they have trouble just organizing their thoughts, and so
Right.
when they get into a process, it forces them to do. Was there anything? Do you personality wise? Do you
Mm-hmm.
feel like did it awaken something in you that you weren't aware of prior to starting?
I mean, definitely. I mean, this may surprise you. I am not a talker. I talk for a living, but I'm not a social butterfly.
Right,
I do
right.
not like to, be in huge gatherings and put myself out there. But you kind of have to when you're working on something and you're trying to get the word out. It really propels you to, speak up and talk about it. And so that's one of the things that I would say as far as my personal. I'm still very reserved, but even with this book, I've had to share with people, hey, I'm working on a book, I would definitely love for you to check it out when it comes out. Things that I would normally never do in the past. And so I've definitely in that area grown, just putting myself out there a little bit more, especially with this interview. I would never I would never. This is like big for me, I'm gonna tell you. So it's all good though. It's about growth.
Well, when I found out that you were doing this, again, the premise of this show, one of the main purposes of this show is to kind of highlight people like you who are doing things but don't necessarily have the notoriety that others may have. So
Mhm.
I consider it an honor just to be a part of your journey, and this is something that people need to know about. You know what I mean?
Thank
People
you so much.
locally, and there are people here not just from Virginia watching. There's people from Florida, Georgia,
Yeah,
California, all over.
yeah,
So you know what I mean? Hopefully, it's always my hope that my guests would come away with came away from this with new connections, new resources. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Maybe somebody might be watching who writes books or owns a bookstore or has a connection with Barnes and Noble. I don't know,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
that's what the hope and the goal is for it. So, again, I see what you're doing, and I see how important it is, particularly too being a woman of color. So, because that has to be. I don't think that it's that many in the in
Right.
the in the industry as it is.
Right.
So that's important in and of itself. Now that's a question too. Did you realize the significance of you being a woman of color doing this? Like, do you ever think about this, or just kind of sum it
Mhm.
up? Are you a black author, or are you an author that happens to be
Oh, you going deep, ain't you?
black?
Well, no, I really haven't, as far as, the impact or what this means as far as, me being, a black woman. That is not something that I thought about. I do know that if you compare it with numbers in terms of other authors, I'm sure that there is a huge gap. I'm positive of that, not even knowing the numbers. But I haven't sat down and said, well, to answer your question, I do not consider myself a black author. That is not, even though my audience is maybe catered towards a specific, I guess, or even though my book may be catered towards a specific audience, it is really for all readers. And in fact, the characters in my book are, not there are non-black characters. So, I want to make sure that there is no exclusion, but like I said, representation matters to me. And I would love for little girls, minority girls, to be able to pick up a book and see someone who has curly hair or pigtails or, dark skin and say, wow, this character actually looks like me, and gravitate towards it. And so that was my whole major goal. But in terms of, wanting to be able to impact all readers, that's also a goal.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. Being an attorney. Let's shift gears a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Is there a specific area of law that you cover,
Mm-hmm.
or do you just kind of do everything?
Well, I'm a prosecutor, and
Wow.
so
Okay.
that's it's essentially pretty much just criminal law. So that's my area. And I work for the government essentially. And I love it. It's what I've been doing for a long time. It's what I truly love to do. I get to meet different people. I get to work with, I've worked with some amazing people. And so I really do love being a prosecutor.
With the state of current events, like we saw last year, and even
Mhm.
some this year. Um, how do you see yourself now? Do you see yourself differently being
Mhm.
a prosecutor? Do you see yourself differently now than before everything happened?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, a lot of these things are things that have been, as far as the issues that I see, the systemic racism, some of the flaws that may be with the criminal justice system. These are things that, have been around for years. Obviously, with, some of the events happening and having a spotlight on them, it magnified them. And so it hasn't changed me too much, but it has made me definitely, more compassionate, definitely more, more forced me to be more in tune with what's going on around me, specifically my community. Um, and just making sure that I am, you know, um, continuing to exercise justice whatever that means,
Mhm.
it may not, it's someone is not going to walk away all the time fully happy. But if I know that I've, done my job ethically and that I've pursued justice, that's what I'm happy with.
Yeah, and it's funny because with you being a prosecutor, you're usually the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, or considered the bad guy. Not you are
Right.
the bad guy, but you're considered the bad guy.
Right.
So, so yeah, that's why I asked. Do you feel like that you've had to do things differently? Um, do you feel? Is there pressure? Do you ever feel pressure as a woman of color to when it comes to like cases dealing with minorities or whatever? Do you feel the pressure because you're on one side of the coin,
Right.
you're sworn to do a certain
Mhm.
thing, but on the second thing there's an unspoken uh
Yeah,
you know
I
what I
know what
mean?
you said. I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I won't say that I've ever felt pressure because in doing my job, one, I'm always going to, pray and get guidance. So I don't necessarily feel pressure in terms of trying to, being pulled in either direction because of I'm a black woman. But I will say because of where I grew up, how I grew up, and just my upbringing, I can exercise a level of empathy that someone who doesn't look like me may not be able to exercise, or I may be able to exercise a level of compassion that someone who doesn't look like me, who doesn't have my background,
Mhm.
may not be able to exercise. And that's why I love, staying on this side. Because I have gotten the question, would you ever, do defense? Would you ever? But I really do believe that I am making just as much of an impact on this side because we do need people who have diverse backgrounds, on both sides, but definitely, as prosecutors. So,
Okay. And just to kind of expound on that, when you do statistics, when you're going in, do statistics ever play a role? Because like you see you see sometimes, I don't know how really specifically how it is in Virginia, but in other places you see minorities get a disproportionate amount of longer sentences for minor offenses, what's considered
right.
minor offenses or whatever. Do do you do statistics play a part in your job? Do you pay attention to those?
Oh, yeah,
Because
definitely.
I mean I would think that that may be a pressure a point of pressure for you because you're looking
Right.
at these statistics and then you got a case that kind of falls in line with these statistics and you're like, okay,
Right.
um, you know what I mean?
Right.
So how do statistics play a part in it? Do you?
That's a good question. I mean, there's not a time when I'm walking into a case, if I'm being honest, thinking about, statistics, but
Mhm.
it is something that when I'm thinking about a case, I'm thinking on a case by case basis. But I'm also thinking, if regardless of your color, if I'm doing this is because I'm looking at you as a person and I'm considering all of the factors. I'm
Mhm.
not, looking at it because you're, white or black. But at the same time, if I'm getting a background report from, a black male, and I'm understanding that he grew up, in a particular situation, that's a mitigating factor for me.
Okay.
It's mitigating factors regardless of what their color is. That's not something that I'm going to you know ever make a decision based on, but it's something, like I said, that I can take into consideration and I can empathize with. So,
Okay. Okay. So back to the authorship. Okay. Does your job play? Do they intersect? Do you ever find that?
mm.
your book and everything, and your process with the book
Mhm.
intersects with your process as a prosecutor, and if so, how?
Right. That's a good question. I'm not sure that they intersect, but what I would hope for is, because I work a lot with children in my job. I do a lot of cases that involve children as victims, unfortunately. And so my goal maybe down the line and is to be able to, even help them through my books and say, hey, this is for you. This is a book and I want you to read it or what have you. And so I guess there'll be a little intersection in that regard. But, I find that, in writing this book, it has taken away some of the pressures that I feel with my job, some of the day-to-day stressors, when I start working on this, I'm not thinking about some of the things that I have to deal with, with my job. So that has been helpful in that regard.
Wow. And that's, that you were in my head. I
Mhm.
was gonna ask you, like, you see a lot of things up close that a lot of people don't get to see.
Mhm.
And I would think that it would be very easy to bring a lot of that stuff home with you. And
Oh
so
yeah.
I was wondering, like, how do you how do you manage with that?
Oh my goodness, that's a good question. I had to learn how to do that several years ago when I was doing the domestic violence cases in my office because that's a heavy issue. And if you're not careful, you can take some of them things home with you. Especially during that time, I was still early on in my marriage. I had, we were having young children, and so, you hear things and you see things, and, you can easily come back home stressed or vexed or what have you from dealing with witnesses and things just not going your way. So I had to learn early on, like, separation is key. Like, once I leave work, obviously, sometimes I have to take work home with me, but in terms of, whatever is going on there emotional wise, I try to keep it very separate because I don't want that energy or those things coming into my home, those spirits or what have you coming into my home. And so I just, release it all. You'll meet.
Sorry about that. Let's talk about let's talk about spirituality.
Mm,
Okay.
mm-hmm.
First in writing the book,
Yes.
what role does your faith play in writing, a book, particularly for, when you talk about writing books for kids?
Oh yeah, definitely. And you know what? I thought about that when writing the book. I definitely wanted to have a message of, those foundational cornerstone, principle, morality, principles that we learn about when we were younger. But I also was very intentional of not wanting it to be categorized as a religious book or a book that, you know, it doesn't mention God or anything of that nature. But however, in my faith, my personal faith, I know that, what the Bible speaks about being grateful, about being thankful for each day, about being honest, about,
Mhm.
being respectful. So those are all things personally, my faith, they're embedded in that book. And so, the message is still going out there. So it was very important for me to have a book that had lessons on those types of principles that
Wow.
were biblically based.
Wow. Yeah, because it can be very very tricky. Even on here,
Mhm.
even on this platform, I've had people tell me, I had a lady tell me, she doesn't watch the show because she's not religious.
Oh.
So I had to like kind of like think about that for a second,
Hmm.
because I don't just have,
Right.
religious people on. I
Right.
have doctors, nurses, people that, aren't particularly,
Right.
like that. And so I just really I really had to think about that thing for a minute,
But
because that's not what I'm. You
Yeah,
know,
but you know what, Mike? Sometimes people will put their perception of you on you, even though that's not like, just because they know who you represent,
hmm
and your faith and your background, they think that's it to you. And sometimes people try to put you in a box, and you can't put someone in a box.
yeah,
So yeah.
because I try to I want to um I want to get I want to see and I want people to see a full
Yeah.
viewpoint of life and the world, and everybody who has an opinion is not necessarily God fearing, not necessarily church
Exactly.
going, and so even if I don't agree, I I want the opportunity to
Yeah.
kind of introduce that so that because sometimes I'll tell you some of the most responsible and some of the most wisest counsel that I've ever gotten in my
Mhm.
life came from people who don't even go to church.
Yes, exactly.
You
I
know,
think
so
it might have been Apostle Charlie who said a few years ago, maybe he said something to the effect of, if all you got is saved people in your circle, or godly people, or religious people in your circle, you need to broaden your circle.
right.
I mean, it's bigger than that, and like you said, you can gain so much from others, and they can gain from you, and that's what it's about. That's what it's all about. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's and like you were saying, with the book, you're using while you're not specifically saying God and
Hmm.
Jesus and all that, you're using spiritual principles,
Right.
godly principles,
Hmm.
moral principles. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And so I take my hat off to you because I know that can be very tricky.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You
Thank
know,
you so much.
especially when we live in this what they call a cancel culture.
Oh.
So the least little thing can be taken out of context and just
Hmm.
you know.
Cut you off real quick.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cut you off real quick.
Absolutely. Um, so we're gonna shift gears a little bit and
Okay.
talk to Shukita personally.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. Um, what would you say, or what have you found? Um, just in your process
Hmm.
to be the most common misconception that people have about you.
About me? Wow. Uh, that is a good question. I think a lot of people not necessarily don't think I don't want to use the word stuck up, because that's definitely not me. But I think that people may think I'm just a little standoffish and, don't sometimes want to be bothered. And that's definitely not it. I'm like, one of the nicest people you'll ever meet, I think. But that again just comes from me not really being a sociable person, and I'm really just fine with having a day out by myself and
Mhm.
just being alone. I'm really okay with that. Some people are not. I'm not that person. I will have a great time. Um, but yeah, I think that might be the misconception. But again, once you get to know me, once I get to know you, it's great. But I just, I have to sometimes put myself out there first. Mhm.
So on the flip side of that, what would you say that people would be most surprised to know about you?
Oh, most surprised that I'm so goofy. I'm like a jokester. I love to laugh. Like, comedy is my thing. So once you get to know me, you'd be like, Shakita, what in the world? You cracking jokes? Like,
Mhm.
they'd be like, I didn't know you just were just goofy and corny. So yeah,
Right.
I think they would be surprised to know that about me. I'm like
Wow.
the goofiest person. I love like little knock jokes. I love, telling, little goofy jokes or whatever. My husband, he'll just roll his eyes. But I like stuff like that. Hmm.
Okay. So in your writing process, Has there has it taught you anything new as it pertains to your children?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I really just, I already shared with you about Jeremiah and how this has impacted him. Jackson hasn't, he's younger, so I don't think he fully grasps everything. But I really just more so through this process want to be able to encourage them to do whatever they want to do. Like for me, nothing is impossible. Like I know we say that and it's like cliche, but for me, I want them to know that, you may be 5, you may be 9, however old you are, if you want to go out there and, if you say, mommy, I want to, I don't know, whatever crazy idea it may be, as long as you're not hurting nobody, as long as it's not breaking the law, as long as it's something reasonable, through this process, I want them, I have learned that, they can do it. I would support them in doing that. Because I would want someone to support me. And I think, just in growing up, I didn't have those same resources. My parents, they were very involved, but they were, they worked. They had to, we just didn't have the same resources that, that we have now. So, I think that's the main thing. I would really truly support them in whatever idea that they had, because we see now with social media and all those things that really anything is possible.
You know what? I got a question. I got a question for you. You kind of sparked a thought in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Being a parent, being a parent who is a new author and a business owner and
Mm-hmm.
things of that nature. How much of a challenge is it to follow your dreams while nurturing theirs?
That's a good question. Um, that's a loaded question. You said how much of a challenge is it?
Yeah, is it a challenge? Because you know what, I talk to a lot of parents and stuff. They say, "Oh, you know what I'm saying, I support my kids 100% in everything that they do. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's all about them, da 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 da." But when do you? But
Yeah,
my thing is, when do you stop? When do
right.
you stop dreaming too? Like,
Yeah.
what is there a challenge for you to be able to find that balance that you can feed your creative energy while still doing it in a healthy way for them as well?
Right. I haven't ran into that roadblock yet. Because like I said, it's, Jeremiah, this is really his first time actually coming to me and saying this is something that he wanted to explore. But I definitely, remember my mom making statements like that when I was younger, about, wanting to maybe do certain things, but wanting to make sure that my brother and I, finish school. And then it was like, well, you got to finish college or you got to finish law school. It was always something, to the point where, well, what do you, I will always say, well, mom, if you want to do that, you can do it. Like, we're going to be fine. And so I can see how that can become embedded in someone's mind if that's what they, you know, have grown up hearing. But for me, I always challenge myself, what's the next thing? So after I write this, what's going to be the next thing? And I'm not going to let my children or whatever they have going on stop me. It may take me a little bit longer, but it will eventually get done. And in the process, I'll help them with whatever they, want to work on. So I think I, would definitely be able to balance it. So.
Wow. Are you a do you consider yourself a, because I know with being in the business that you're in the industry
Mhm.
that you're in, um you're challenged to meet deadlines. You're challenged
Mhm.
to do research and find out information, literally find guilt or innocence. You're charged with all these different things to meet certain quotas and deadlines and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Um, because of that, is there a challenge for you? Are you the type of person that is able to stop and smell the roses, or are you the type of person that finishes a project because they know they got another project after that? Like some people are just that oriented where they just move on to the next thing.
Right.
Do you give yourself the opportunity to kind of like sit
Right.
back and look at your accomplishments, or are you just a goer?
No, I wouldn't consider myself. I think that it depends on the time, the season I'm in, and the time frame. But I would definitely would say I'm more of a sit back and smell the roses. Like I like to have my day of, this is my mental day. This is my day where I'm, gonna go out and get my nails done or just relax. Don't nobody bother me today. And I tell my husband, this is my time. Like, in fact, this past week, I had a long week. I had like a 3-day trial that ended early, and I took off that next day. I said, I need a day to decompress. And so I'm definitely one of those where, I need a mental break, because if not, I'm not going to be good for you, me, nobody. So I definitely like to sit back and smell the roses when I can. There are seasons where, I might roll right into the next thing because that's just how it is during that time. But I definitely like to take time for those breaks.
So yeah, reflection, being able to to have reflection
Mhm.
is absolutely key. Um, this is a question that I ask all my guests. Um, when I ask it, I'm gonna just give you an opportunity just to think about it,
Okay.
and
Oh,
then just give me the most honest and transparent answer that you can give. Okay. The question is this: um, what would have to happen in your life if it hasn't happened already
mm-hmm.
for you to consider your life a success? What does success look like for you
Oh
specifically?
my goodness. Success looks like to me. That's a good question. I mean, obviously, I'm not gonna, there's never a number. I can't put a number on it in terms of, I guess success for me would be being like flourishing in my life, spiritually, all components of it, just, you know, at the max, spiritually, financially, emotionally, physically. That would be what success would look like for me. And I know at times there's an imbalance and there's always something going on in the areas, but for the most part, if I have, those all of those components in line and all of them are, flourishing, at the same time, that would be what success would look like for me. I'm not, obviously money and all of those things are always a bonus and good, but it's not what, for me, it's not what brings me peace. So I would just say when all of those components are in line and flourishing together, that's what success looks like for me.
Wow. And I'm gonna tell you, I asked that question to all my guests, and I'm gonna tell
Mhm.
you, it's so interesting to the answers that I get. You know,
Oh,
when I when I ask or when I ask, what's the most common misconception that people get, you would be surprised. Some of the answers that I get. Like one time, one time I was interviewing this lady, and I said, what have you found to be the most common misconception about you?"
Mhm.
So she goes, "Oh, I already know what that is. People always think that I want their man. That's the common misconception."
That's what she said.
That's what she said. And she was serious. She was like, that's the most common misconception. People always think I want their man. I don't want their man. But that's what they be thinking, blah, 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 blah. So
Oh my
I always find myself, now it's kind of a
God.
habit. Like when I ask these questions, I kind of like brace myself on the inside for what I'm gonna hear. But
That is funny.
absolutely. So so when do you think that your book will be released? Oh,
I would
possible.
say definitely before the end of this month. Like I said, there are some minor tweaks that are happening because I want to put out a perfect book, and so I would say in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And so I definitely will be sharing that on my social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, I hopefully maybe will be able to work on maybe some type of launch, or like I said, some place where I can actually do like a signing or something of that nature. We're going to think of something, but yes, definitely I would say this month people will be able to order their book.
That is awesome. And you're married to a business owner. Shout out to Mr. Melvin Massey.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr.
So so what influence does that has that had on you
Oh my gosh.
doing what you're doing?
Let me tell you, you know my husband, okay? So he has the mentality that it's always like, okay, so what's stopping you? Like what's the issue? And I'd be like, okay, well, I gotta do this. Okay, and so what's the problem? So his mindset is always like, it can be done. I don't care how insurmountable it seems, it's gonna get done. And so that's why we balance each other out so well, because he will literally risk it all to achieve a goal or to achieve his dream, but I'm more strategic and like to have things lined up. And so he's one of those people that if I tell him that, babe, this is what I want to do, this is a goal that I have, whether it's for my career or whatever, he's so supportive, and he's like, well, if that's what you want to do, go for it. So he's a true, when I say entrepreneurial spirit, he has it. Like he is, will risk it all. So he's a good motivator. He's a very good motivator.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Put your book up on the screen again.
Oh, Parker, available very soon.
Oh, Parker.
Yeah.
Parker. Parker.
Right here.
Absolutely. So I want to thank you.
Yes.
But before I go there, if I'm an aspiring author,
yes,
or if there was something that you said on this platform that really inspired me and I had questions, how would I be able to reach out to you?
Oh yeah, I'm on Facebook under my name, Shukita, Shukita Massey, Massey on Facebook, on Instagram under Mrs. ESQ83. That's my Instagram handle. So you can find me, message me via either of those platforms, and I will definitely reach back out to you.
Absolutely. Is there any final word that you want to
Yeah,
give?
of course. I just again want to reiterate that I'm so grateful to you. I love your family, especially your wife. And she is beautiful, and you're a beautiful representation of her. You are a beautiful representation of each other.
Thank you.
So when the book is finished, I do want to give you a copy just for providing this platform to me. I would love for Brianna to read it. I would love for her to be able to read it and give me her critique or feedback.
And she will do that.
Yes, I would love it, and tell her I will not. She can give it to me honestly. And so I would love for that, to give that to you, and then again, just thank you.
Okay. What do you want to say to? What would you say to any aspiring authors out there, or any aspiring anything out there?
Yeah,
what word would you want to leave with them?
Yeah, I would just say, believe in yourself. It's so cliche, but if you believe in yourself, then nothing else matters. If you have a goal, if you think of something, something I read a few weeks ago is, goals are, God places desires in us and goals in us for a reason. And sometimes it's, for us to make an impact. Sometimes it may be for a different reason, but they are purposeful when we had that idea or what have you. And so believe in yourself and just go for it. Do the necessary research or whatever, and just go for it, no matter how long it takes.
Awesome. Again, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank
I
you.
wish blessings on on your family, on everything, on the book,
Thank
on
you.
your practice, and everything that you have going on. And again, I hope and I pray that you understand the significance of that you not take for granted the significance of what you're actually doing, because there are so many young people, young boys, young girls who feel like there is no exact. They're doing what they're doing because they don't feel like there's an alternative. They don't feel
Right.
like they see any examples, and so you represent an alternative. You know what I mean? And
Thank you.
so I hope that never take for granted the mantle that you're carrying right now, because
Wow.
again, a lot of people, a lot of young people in particular, and not even young, not even limited to young people,
Right.
but like you know, more seasoned and wise people, they just don't have the examples, and they don't
Right.
see the examples, and so you represent, an alternative, and so I pray that you never um diminish that or take that for granted, because you are actually doing something that's very important for the culture and for community as well.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I receive it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And again, I thank you. I appreciate you coming on, and I wish blessings on everything that you have going on.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you.
No problem. You have a good weekend.
All right. Thanks. You too. Bye.
There you have it, you guys. Another great interview with a great interviewee, Miss Shukita Massey. She is an author. She is an attorney, a prosecutor. We talked about, we talked about the book. We talked about her law practice. We talked about, um, the current state of the world, and different things like that. And again, I just want to kind of like reiterate, that people like Shakita and a lot of the others that I've had, a lot of the other guests that I've had on the show, um, including Mr. Melvin. Her husband has been on the show before too. But I want to reiterate the importance of, to all the people who have been on here, the importance of what they're doing, because so many times, we have taken the stance that we only do what we do based off of the examples that we have or the lack thereof. So, you know, opportunities like this, platforms like this, hopefully shine light on people who can be positive examples and show an alternative, that you don't have to just throw your dreams to the side. You don't have to feel overwhelmed. You don't have to feel alone in what you're doing, because there are those out there that are not only willing to help you, but they will, stand with you and walk with you in the process, because it's important. You know what I'm saying? That the more positive things, the more positive outlets and more positive resources that we have, the more successful people that will, successful adults that we'll raise, and more, morally conscious, you know what I mean? We'll have more people who are skilled, skilled that in things that will impact life in a positive way. Um, I I feel like, and I've said it before, like, like with Let's Take a Walk, I hope that this inspires somebody who may be aspiring to do this to say, hey, I can do it. I'm going to go ahead and do it. Even if they say, you know what, Let's Take a Walk is whack. I can do that. I can do better than that. If I can spark you, even if I can spark you in that way, at least you're doing. You're gonna get up and you're gonna do. But that's the important thing. Just being the positive example, positive role model, or the you know, something that people can point to and say, I did this because I saw this person, or I read Shakita's book, or I worked out in Melvin's gym, or I saw Mike on L Talk. You know what I mean? So with that being said, man, just keep being positive, keep pushing forward, and never give up on your dreams. Um, just keep pressing, man. Keep pressing. That's all I got to say. You guys have an awesome rest of the weekend. I will see you guys Friday, which will be my last interview for the month of June. I will be back in July. Um, so looking forward to that. So I'll see you guys on Friday. Again, I thank Miss Shukita for coming on the show. If you came in on halfway through the show, you can check us out on YouTube. Let's Take a Walk featuring Shukita Massey. That's SHUKITA MASSEY. Let's Take a Walk featuring Shukita Massey. You can check that out on YouTube, or you can go on my Facebook page, my Facebook, Mike Robinson 11, or Let's Take a Walk 2020 in all caps. You can check them out on either one of those sites and, watch the replay. Please, if you go on YouTube, please like and share. If you go and see it wherever you watch it, please like and share it and pass it on to somebody that may not have watched it. We're trying to get, the subscribers up, the viewers up, all that. We're trying to spread the word, okay? So, again, thank you guys for coming on and watching the show. And I will see you guys next week. Peace. Let's take a walk.